Hi, this is Miss Dutchins, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you how to do the Atlantic slave trade assignment. So I'm going to go over this slide by slide, so just make sure that you pay attention and so you know what to do. So the first slide that you're going to see, it's going to have the watch this video for directions. I'm making that video right now, but once I'm done, it'll be right here. The second slide is just a very much like, read this, please. So it says please read, obviously. This can be a really rough topic to study, but also a very important part of our history. It has pretty much influenced who we are, how we react to things, and what's going on right now in our country today. So it's very important to understand how did we get to this point and what did our country do in the very beginning and what did the country that owned us do. And part of that was slave trade. They wanted to make more money, so they kidnapped people from the continent of Africa and they brought them over so they could use them as free labor, so they could make more money from the colonies. And this was something that was really exploitative, and it's a really dark part of our history, but again, it's very important to understand. So because it is a very hard part, I advise you take breaks when you need them. Be kind to yourself. Don't try to rush through this assignment. Don't If you're feeling some kind of feelings, walk away and come back and finish it. You have 2 days to finish this. You have until tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. So just make sure that you're doing what you need to do for you, because again, this can sometimes bring up some feelings. So I'm going to go to the first slide. So what you're looking at for this first slide is you're looking at a secondary source. And the secondary source is going to go over slave trade in a map sense. So how did they get to the colonies and how did they get to other countries? Obviously it was not by choice, it was by force. But this map gives you an idea of the travelings of how things got to where they did. So you're going to answer this question down here. It says, what are 5 things you can learn from the Atlantic slave trade from this map? One of the things is you're going to notice that it's a triangle. So if you go like this, all this trade was happening in a triangular way, so they called it triangular trade. So if you're watching this video, then that might be your first answer. The next slide, you're going to read 2 other sources. So the first one is going to be a little quotation. So it says, I was likewise told by a Negro woman that as she was on her return home one evening from some neighbors, she was kidnapped, and notwithstanding she was big with child, sold for a slave. This transaction happened a considerate way up the country, and she had passed through the hands of several purchasers before she reached the ship. So it's going to ask you the question, what does the author say about how slaves found themselves aboard the slave ship? So how did they get onto the slave ships? They didn't walk on there by choice. So how did they get it based on this source? Your next one is going to have a picture, and then it's also going to have little quotations. It's kind of a little long one, so I'm not going to read it out loud to you, but you're going to look at the picture and you're going to look at the little words on the side, and then you're going to answer this question. What are 3 things you can learn from the Atlantic slave trade from this primary source? So a primary source means that it was made in the time period that you're studying. So what can you learn from this little summary, this little reading right here and this picture? Be specific. Don't be just I learned that they could draw. I learned that they could read. Be specific and take it seriously, you guys. What specifically do you see in it that you did not know that you think people can learn based on this artifact? So we're going to go to the next one. So this one's going to go over basically the slave ship itself. And how these people were transported. These were people, and they were transported as if they were just property, as if they were just objects. So this picture and this description is to give you an idea of what they went through when they came over to the colonies. So make sure to read it, but also make sure to zoom in and really look at this picture, because it's going to give you an idea of what it was like to go through that. It's not going to, obviously it's just a glimpse, but kind of zoom in, look at it. And then you're going to answer this question, summarize what the author is saying in this quote. So when you read this, you're going to summarize it. Now, some of the words that they're using in here, you might go like, "Oh my God, that's not a word I should use." Remember, these are primary sources. These are what people during the time talked like. It does not necessarily reflect anything in this time period. It reflects how people wrote during that time period. So when you're looking at primary sources, a lot of times you'll have to read things that don't come out the right way nowadays. So you kind of take it with a grain of salt and know that you're working with pieces that were created during that time period, and they come from the perspective of people from that time period. So that's what's important when you guys are analyzing these certain things. Imagine you were a slave aboard a ship. After reviewing all the sources, return here and write a short letter that describes the conditions you're facing. So you're going to describe to me what kind of conditions that if you were to put yourself into that headspace, what kind of experiences would you have? Make sure you write them down in this little space right here, and you're just, overall just telling me like, what do you think that they went through? What do you think that like it was like? Kind of try to walk in somebody else's shoes. I know it's really impossible because it's like such a horrible, horrible thing, but it's really important to have that sense of empathy and to kind of try to get into the heads of these people. So this next one is just reminding you that you have the ability to take a break. It's not due till tomorrow, so make sure that you stop yourself and pick it up tomorrow if you need to. So this next one, source 4. So you're going to read this, and then you're going to list 4 facts of how slaves were fed aboard the slave ship. So you looked at how they were transported, and you looked at how they arrived on the ship, and now you're going to look at what were they fed, what were they like treated like. So make sure you read that, and then you're going to list 4 facts down here. And then down here it says, these pieces of text come from Alexander Falconbridge and Martin Duberman. Falconbridge was a British surgeon who took part in 4 voyages on a slave ship between 1780 and 1787, before becoming an abolitionist to end slavery. So an abolitionist is somebody who wanted to get rid of slavery. Martin Duberman was the 20th century historian and biographer famous for writing about social justice issues. Explain the extent that Alexander Falconbridge or Martin Duberman are reliable sources for understanding the slave trade. So how does what they said, why do you think that is reliable? Give me some like evidence of why it might be reliable. Meaning like why might this be more true than somebody else that wasn't there? So the next slide, this is where it kind of gets kind of rough. So like again, make sure that you're taking your time and you're thinking of yourself. So it says, which source 1, 2, 3, or 4 addresses the picture to the right? Directly copy a quote from the source into the space provided. So you're going to tell me, based on this picture, what source do you think it is most like? So you have all these sources up here. You got your source 1, you got your source 1, source 2, source 3, and source 4. So you're going to tell me, out of those, what do you think it belongs in the most? And then the same thing with this. You're going to tell me your answer, the source, and then a quote. Because these are like pictures, you won't be able to just like copy and paste. You're going to have to type it over, so just FYI. But you're going to go back to those sources and you're going to give me a quote that shows you evidence of why that belongs to that source. Meaning, why are they very similar? If you had to like put all of these in different piles, and then you had to put these on the piles they were most similar to, which ones would they go into? 1, 2, 3, or 4. So you're going to do that for all 3 pictures. Then the next slide, you're going to do page 12 on your student notebook. You guys will be learning about Phillis Wheatley. So you're going to be watching a video about Phillis Wheatley, who's an important writer who was there at the time and was also an African American writer. So it's very rare that we get a glimpse into the lives of people who back then, because it was hard to get documentation. So what you guys will be watching is a little biography about this person. It's actually really cool. So make sure that you watch the video and make sure you answer it to the best of your ability on page 12 in your student notebook. Then once you've done that, you just don't forget to hit turn in or mark as done. in Google Classroom. Yeah, just again, just take your time with this assignment, reflect on it. Sometimes the things that are hardest to learn about are the most important to learn about. But other than that, thank you for listening. If you have any question, make sure you message me on Remind. But yeah, that's it. Thanks.